So you want to make it easy? You take all the debt that exists, use that as a proxy for all the money that exists, and divide it by all the gold that exists, and it's somewhere north of $40,000 an ounce.
40,000.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I know that sounds outrageous, and people are going to go, oh, what is she talking about? It's only $2,500 an ounce. Well, go back to 1900. What is the face value of this coin that was minted in, this happens to be 1908? $20. So if you had gone back in 1908 and said to a citizen, you know,
Good
one
point.
of these days, right? They would have looked at you like you had three heads. And now ask me, well, when's it going to go there?
Hey guys, welcome back to Capital Cosm. Today I've got the one and only Lynette Zang. I'm super stoked to have her on. Lynette, thank you so much for making your maiden voyage on Capital Cosm.
Oh, I am so happy to be here and be able to develop this community with you. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we were just talking about how important community building is, and having minds like yourself and some of the other folks that we have on this channel to kind of use as a brain trust. I mean, that stuff is it's valuable to no end. So if you guys are enjoying this content, you can hit that like button, you can hit that subscribe button. We are doing these just about daily now, so it kind of behooves you not to do so because you might miss an episode, right? So hit that subscribe button if you're getting value out of this content. And Lynette, let's just start things off. For the one or two people out there, you're a very acclaimed personality in the gold and silver space, in the alt finance space. But for the one or two people out there who may not know who you are, who is Lynette Zang?
Well, that's a very deep question, and I could go in any different direction for that. But I can tell you that I have been groomed for this moment in time, and on some level, I have been in these markets, whether it's the tangibles market or the stock market or as a banker, but on some level since 1964. So that's who I am. And I started studying currency and currency life cycles in 1987 as a stockbroker at Shearson. And that, if I hadn't happened across that, I wouldn't know and understand what was happening any more than most people. But I 100% know. I mean, there isn't even a tiny little doubt in my mind because all of the technical factors are there. And officially, we're essentially out of purchasing power. And I started talking about the reset in 2009 because the system really died in 2008. And they just, printed over, let's play central bank. This is the key tool that they have to hide and cover up and buy them time to get the next monetary system in place. And I don't know that they're quite there yet, but they're close.
Yeah, but before we get into that, though, what's kind of like your overview of the economy? Let's see, a 30,000-foot view of the economy, given what's happened last week with the yen carry trade. Where do you see us today?
Well, I'll go back a little bit further than that because once the global central banks started raising rates in a very pervasive way, what they actually did was they ended a 40-year trend cycle, and there has been a systemic shift in the bond market, which is arguably the most important market because it's, well, other than derivatives, which are big fat bets, it's the underpinning, particularly of the treasury market.
Right.
It is the underpinning of the global financial system. And that's been showing a lot of stress and lack of liquidity, lack of the ability to buy and sell it without majorly moving prices since 2015. So, the system died in 2008. And then the treasury market, the foundation of the global financial system, started falling apart in 2015. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. So we're seeing all of the volatility. And if we look, like I just pulled up the VIX chart, you talked about what happened last week in the stock markets, but that was coming for a minute or two. But if you look at the volatility, prior to 2020, it was volatile since 2008 to 2020, but at a certain level. After 2020, between 2020 and then Monday, you can see it. You can see the pattern shift and the higher level in volatility into extremely overvalued fiat markets, stock market, bond market, real estate market. There ain't no place to go. This is it. This is it.
Yeah, but you see all this complacency out there in the finance world. Everyone thinks that was it. Last week we had this, it's 5, 6, 7, 8% haircut, depending on which industry you're looking at, and good times are back again. But do you see this kind of rally as more of a dead cat bounce, so to speak?
Absolutely. Technically, as a technician, if you look on the charts, what you'll see is this huge, it closed here on Friday, and this huge gap where it opened on Monday morning. Mm-hmm. Okay? So it closed at this price, it opened at this price. Right. At some point, all gaps get filled. And so what we're experiencing, yes, indeed, is a dead cat bounce where they're just filling that gap, but they're also trying to keep you stupid. Right? Because if you get nervous enough, you're going to pull your funds out of the markets. Well, they're counting on the public to support the markets. So they're counting on the consumers to support the corporations. And these systems are breaking down. So this is not over with yet. And by the way, that's just what happened on Monday. What's happened a week or two before that with CrowdStrike and Microsoft going down on a global basis, and then all of those Vanguard and Fidelity and all of those fund houses that are holding and managing your money, boom, they're also down. So people think that there's liquidity and they can get out whenever they want to, and boy, they're going to know 1 second before it, they're going to get out. Well, you can't. And that's what this is all being set up as. But even before that, what did we have? We had a banking crisis that nobody is even really talking about anymore. And a few weeks before that, the fintech banks, also a company, Synapse, became insolvent and locked, well, we don't know how many yet, but between 1 million and 10 million people are locked out of their accounts because they can't account for a lot of the money because of hypothecation. And I know this is a lot of stuff, but it's never just one incident. There is a series of incidences that keep happening and keep warning the public about how fragile this system is, and if they can cover it up really fast, everything is fine. Yeah, that was just a head fake. That was the title on one of that. Spiking VIX, just a head fake. No, it's not a head fake. It's showing you that we have some serious problems in the system, and one of these times when it gets too expensive, and I'll tell you, I'll come back to that in a second, but when it gets too expensive for the Fed to bail out in one invisible way or another, when enough risk has been transferred from the few, so from the elites, from Wall Street, from the bankers, from the hedge funds, from the private equity, to the public, then you watch. That next crisis will just be way too expensive to bail out, and everything will come crashing down.
And is that setting the stage for a CBDC? Is that how is that pretty much a red carpet for a CBDC?
100%. They need, having studied currencies and currency life cycles, having looked at over 4,800 examples and seeing what happens 100% of the time in every single financial shift, and we're doing the same things. They want you to think this time is going to be different because then you don't make choices that support your best interest. But it's never different. So yes, they need a big enough crisis to shove the CBDCs down our throat. and I'm working diligently. This is why community is so important. I'm looking at community on two different levels. Locally, because I think your viewers can remember 2020 when you couldn't get toilet paper or food at the grocery stores or any of that. That was a warning. Those supply chains have not been fixed. And if you move one jar up on the top shelf, you'll see there's nothing behind there. So the mantra developed because of that. But that was a huge test to see how much they could control the population. And then the population thinks that's over. It's not over. They learned a lot from that, and they need a big enough crisis to shove this stuff down our throat and say, save me. Where I'm saying when we're looking at community on a local basis, if you can create community in your neighborhood, at your farmer's market, with your local food growers, purveyors, that you can secure your food, water, energy, security, barterability, which for me is silver, wealth preservation, which is for me is gold, community, which is critical, and shelter, because these are the things we need to have a reasonable standard of living. And so that's why I'm doing this. That's why I do all of this and go out and meet the public and try and spread the word, because things will get very local. When things get very scary, they get very local. You have to be prepared for that. But globally, because they are going to shove these CBDCs down our throats, the question is, will we accept it? If you don't have a sound money portfolio, a foundation of real money that is outside of their system, then you have to do whatever they say. They say jump, you say how high. They don't like your opinions, they cut you off. We saw that in Canada with the trucker strike, right? And we're thinking that's a free country. No. So if we come together in community and can make security there, and we come together globally and create a quiet revolution just by converting this garbage, into sound money, well, guess what? Maybe, just maybe, we can have a seat at the table and make a difference and have a foundation of sound money in the new currency. And I'm not saying 100% backed, but something that's going to create restrictions around the abuse that politicians and central banks heap upon us. Because frankly, it's not okay with me. So that's the battle, and that's why I am all about community, locally, globally.
Yeah, I mean, there's truth in what you say, Lynette. I mean, just a week ago, Russia had their banking system hacked, and people there couldn't pull any money out. And I think today too, same thing happened with Iran. So I mean, who's to say that couldn't happen? That can't happen in America. That can happen in Canada, Australia, Europe, whatever. All right. So there may come a time where you've got $100,000, $1 million, $10 million in your bank account. But what good is it if it's just digits and you can't pull it out? Possession is 9/10 of the law, right?
Voila. And you don't really own it. Legally, once you make that deposit into your bank account, you have loaned it to the bank. And it was back, I believe it was 2013 in Cyprus. They tested how people would respond to a bank bail-in. And they always do this in countries that people go, oh, well, that's just Cyprus. That could never happen here. And what they discovered when they first did the bail-in, didn't matter how much you had in the bank, they bailed everything in. But then there was this great global outcry. Oh, deposit insurance, right? So they backed off and they just took anything over €1 million. Or not no, it wasn't €1 million. I'm sorry, it was 100,000 euros. Well, if you look on the graphs of the states and the states buying into the Cypriot banking system and then getting out, this was timed, because when you're an individual, like ask all your viewers should ask yourself, when was the last time you changed your bank account? Right? You don't.
Good question.
consumers, the public, are considered sticky, and they're just the right size to bail in. And then you have the FDIC meeting laughing about how the public will be bailed in. But with these recent crises in banks that have failed between the regional banks in March, April of 2023, and then more recently, right, they keep bailing them out because they are not yet ready for you and I to realize that we are going to be bailed in. We don't own that. According to the Bank for International Settlements, these their words, not mine, gold is the only financial asset that runs zero counterparty risk. You hold it, you own it. And that's my motto. If you don't own it, and your perception means nothing in a court of law.
100%. So what is front and center for you as a gold and silver buyer? What should be front and center for gold and silver buying? What should be on their radar screen right now?
Well, accumulation. Accumulation just as quickly as you can to build a sound money foundation, because sound money has proven itself over thousands of years. And I know a lot of people are really into cryptos, and this happens to be a fake. Well, it's their rendition of a Bitcoin. And I'm showing you this because I don't think it was a coincidence that Bitcoin came out in January of 2009 and quantitative easing came out in March of 2009, and how much of this fiat money would have gone towards sound money if that hadn't happened. So, it's all a setup. It's officially called, these are not my words, these are theirs, perception management. Because if they can manage how you perceive things, then they can, their words again, nudge you in the direction that they want you to go.
It's very interesting you bring Bitcoin into this. I may not have this 100% correctly, but Satoshi Nakamoto, the supposed founder or the creator of Bitcoin, right? His name in Japanese, the etymology behind that essentially translates to the center of intelligence. Centralized intelligence agency, maybe. Do they leave breadcrumbs? I don't know. I'm just speculating, but I just found that was very interesting.
I find 1996 white paper from the NSA, which is a government agency, on how to create a mint and how many similarities there are from that 1996 white paper to the cryptocurrency market. I just find it very fascinating. And I'm not saying it's not here to stay. I'm just not sure who's going to survive.
Right. Well, gold is at a little under $2,500 at the time of this recording. It did make an all-time high, slightly above 2,500 yesterday. Silver's lagging behind, though. Why is silver lagging right now, Lynette?
Well, gold is the primary currency metal. Silver is the secondary currency metal. And while both gold and silver are used in every single sector of the global economy, silver a bit more so than gold. And so silver is also dealing with a slowing global economy, where that just doesn't have the same impact with the primary currency metal.
Right. So what do you say to people who say, well, gold's hitting all-time highs, silver's close to $30. I don't want to get into this trade yet. It's already moved quite a bit. On contraire, there's probably a lot more room to grow, right?
Well, for one thing, you brought the word up perfectly. Trading, because we have been taught to short-termism, shortest attention span. If that happened more than 15 seconds ago, it's no longer relevant. That is really not true. Also, anybody that is counting on Wall Street for real price discovery, I have this bridge in Brooklyn that I'd really like to sell you. So, it's a lie, and it was created, again, going back to the perception management. It was created to keep you away from gold and silver. I think personally, it is critically important, and we were just talking about this earlier today. It is critically important for everybody to understand the true fundamental value of any asset or any instrument. And here's the fundamental value, because they can hide trends. So what? We see the stock market going up, 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 even if it's volatile, whatever, it's going up, 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 and up to nosebleed levels. So people look at it and they get fear of missing out, and it hides the real trend, which is how much this stuff can actually buy you, the purchasing power. If you want to know the true value of this, go on the Federal Reserve's website, the FRED, F-R-E-D, and put in the search bar, purchasing power of the consumer dollar, and look on the left-hand index. And you know what you see down at the bottom where we're very close to right now? A big fat zero. And that's been true over 4,800 times. So what people need to understand, when I call this sound money, this is fiat money. This is government decreed money. Governments do not need to decree this money. Everybody on a global basis knows this is money. But it's the other side to the coin, right? So you have the fiat money on one side, and how's that created? Oh my goodness, it's created by debt. So if you want to know the true value of an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver, let's make it real simple, because here's a guarantee, and I can't tell you when, but I'll give you this guarantee. At some point, all assets, all instruments end up at their fundamental value. So if you look and you see that it's zero on the purchasing power from the Federal Reserve, not my opinion, from the Federal Reserve, then you know that the true value of this $20 bill is a big fat bupkis. It's zero. So it doesn't matter how high the stock market goes. I happen to have a $10 trillion Zimbabwe note here amongst all these currencies. This happens to be 500 million bolivars, right? And here's a million bolivars. What can I buy with that? Absolutely nothing. And yet in 2012, 13, 14, maybe even 15 and 16, in Venezuela, they had the best performing stock market in the world, but they were also in hyperinflation. So all that stock market does, it has turned everybody into traders. It has turned every single physical asset into a trading instrument for the banks to make money on, for goodness sakes, right? And it has misdirected you into something that they control. What's the fundamental value of an ounce of gold? The stock market says, to your point, 2,500, a little bit below that, all-time highs. Is that true? Is that all that that's worth? No, it is not. So you want to know how much that's worth? You take all the debt that's been used to create not just dollars, but all of the fiat money all around the world, take your pick, and you divide it, because there's an infinite amount. They can keep doing this as much as they want, right? I wish they would run out of money. But there is a finite amount of gold. That's it. It can be above ground, it can be below ground, and gold is indestructible. So you want to make it easy? You take all the debt that exists, use that as a proxy for all the money that exists, and divide it by all the gold that exists, and it's somewhere north of $40,000 an ounce.
40,000.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I know that sounds outrageous, and people are going to go, oh, what is she talking about? It's only $2,500 an ounce. Well, go back to 1900. What is the face value of this coin that was minted in, this happens to be 1908? $20. So if you had gone back in 1908 and said to a citizen, you know, one of these days, right, they would have looked at you like you had three heads. And now ask me, well, when's it going to go there? because that's usually the next question. And by the way, the more of this that they do, the higher that number goes, right? I'll tell you when it's going to go there. If you're counting on Wall Street to tell you the true value, again, I have that bridge in Brooklyn. You're never going to get that because that's not the market function. It's going to happen when all confidence, this is a con game, requires confidence, when all confidence is gone in the monetary system and in those leaders in the central banks and the governments, then to get then we will enter hyperinflation. And there's unfortunately not one doubt in my mind that we're headed to a hyperinflationary depression. And I also believe, for technical reasons, which you can ask me about, we can get into if you want to, we're already in the early stages of that, of that hyperinflationary depression. That is when, in order to regain your confidence, that they will do those overnight revaluations, right? And that's when you'll start to see gold begin to express to its fundamental value. Globally, on average, they do those overnight revaluations 3 times. But in Venezuela, in Zimbabwe, so far it's been 6 times. So I can't tell you how many times we're going to do those overnight revaluations, but ultimately, like they're attempting in Zimbabwe right now, they bring gold as part of the currency to regain that public confidence. We did it here in the US, so I'm not just talking about Zimbabwe, but the beauty of Zimbabwe is we have real time, we have a country, the first
use
one,
case. Yeah.
in real time. And we can watch how that unfolds. Really need to schedule a trip to Zimbabwe, I think. I think I need to go there.
It's probably going to be a safer place to be there than it is in the West soon enough. Who knows? But hey, go ahead.
Who knows?
Yeah. Well, hey, you mentioned the hyperinflationary depression. It might seem like an oxymoron to some people, but explain what that is. Because you have rising prices, but then within a depressionary macro context, right? How does that work exactly, and how do you see us in that scenario?
Right. So costs keep going up and up and up. I mean, we can see this. We can see this in Venezuela. We can see this all around the world, actually. Brazil, right? Turkey. So prices are going up, but you certainly don't have the money for the prices to go up because it's the value of the currency going away. And by the way, we did experience that also in this country in 33. Because what did they do? They took all the gold away from the population. We were in a depression, and then they did that overnight revaluation from $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. So I don't know, but I've never heard of anybody other than the wealthy that survived that and did well through the depression. That it was a great time to be, in this world. No, it wasn't. But if you if you were in the right place at the right time with the right asset and you held your purchasing power, there were opportunities that were coming your way that you had the ability to take advantage of.
So Lynette, what do you say to people who make who know that what you're saying is true, but they make the argument that the U.S. dollar is the last domino to fall, and once we get to that point, it may be several years, a decade from now. Is that a true statement? Is the U.S. dollar the last domino to fall? Are we the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper, as they would say?
No, we are actually extraordinarily vulnerable here because right now we hold the title. We don't in reality. This is not reality, but we still hold the title of the world reserve currency, which basically means that, and again, this is not really true anymore, but if you were a government, a corporation, and certainly we all know this as an individual, going to buy something in a different country as the world reserve currency, like with oil and medicine, et cetera, you had to use US dollars, and that created a false market. But we have angered a lot of people. And especially the world we've used our SWIFT, which is the global payment system controlled by the US. We have used that global payment system against our enemies, or who they want us to think are our enemies anyway, say Russia, to kick them out of the global system. And so there are a couple things that are happening. Number one, no currency, I don't care which one you pick, no currency has ever retained the status of the world reserve currency forever, right? So our day is done. We've ticked off a lot of people. On top of that, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which represents 189 countries, and there are 196 in the world. So almost every country in the world, their central bank chief and their treasury secretary, those are the members. The IMF, back in 1969, when we actually tried to give away, until Kissinger went and created the petrodollar, we tried to give the status as the world reserve currency away, but we retained it because of the petrodollar. But in 1969, the IMF created their internal currency called the SDR, which stands for Special Drawing Rights. It's just a name. It doesn't really mean anything. And they created what they call a substitution fund. And what that fund did and does and can do and will do again is anybody in the world that's holding and I'm talking about governments and large corporations, that are holding dollar-denominated instruments or assets, so bonds or currencies or whatever, can deposit it in their substitution fund, and then that gets converted into the SDR. Essentially, and in theory, we don't know if this is actually how it's going to work. I suspect not. But in theory, then they could control the release of the dollars back to the US and therefore control the inflation that we're experiencing. But it would also then convert and create the SDR, which most people aren't familiar with, even though it's been around since '69, even though it's been used in the post office. I mean, go to USPS and in the search bar, put SDR, and you're going to that it's in there along with the airlines. I mean, it's been used as an international reserve since then, but that would now be the largest currency out there. And the IMF, in fact, has been diligently working on creating a universal currency, because the SDR is a basket of currencies, right, like dollars and yen and euros and all of that. And there's no limitations to how many currencies they can put in this basket. So they can put every currency in this basket. And now the IMF, unelected officials, technocrats, control the global money. So even as we're talking about deglobalization, the financial systems are coming together in greater integration. And, will they call the name the dollar? Sure they will. I mean, I think I have here somewhere, well, here's a silver certificate, a $1 silver certificate. Here's a $10 gold certificate, right? See that?
How old are those bills?
This bill is 1928, and this bill is 1923.
I see.
Right? And actually, I'm going to be doing a video on this because this is a $20 gold piece. And so I actually just ordered, it's not here yet, but a $20 gold certificate. And, I'm going to be doing a video on that because people just don't understand, but this is how they get you used to it. Because look at this, and I think, here's a $10 bill, okay? They look pretty similar, don't they?
They're both made out of paper.
So that's how they do it. They keep things appearing to be as normal as possible. That's why the cryptocurrency space is so important. It's to get adoption. Now, they haven't been having as much luck as they wanted, and hopefully we create this quiet revolution. Then, we want choices. We don't want all of our choices and our rights taken away. I personally don't want to be in a full surveillance economy where if they don't like what I'm saying, boom, you're cut off. If they did that to me, guess what? It would be painful. I'm not going to say it wouldn't, but I have food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation. I certainly have community around me, and I have shelter, and I have an off-grid property too.
How important is geography to someone, to the average person who's staring down all of these concerns, all of these dangers facing us? Is the United States, the West as a whole, is that going to still be a safe or preferable place to be, or is is it going to be the goal? The Southern Hemisphere, is that where people are going to flock down to kind of escape this police state that might come into fruition?
I hate to say this, but I frankly don't think that there's any real safe place to go. This is a global issue. You're talking about the foundation of social, economic, as well as financial reform. Everything is changing. And if you go in and you read from the World Economic Forum or from the IMF or the World Bank or the BIS or any of these guys, the puppet masters that are manipulating all of this, I went to a remote location and I'm building the infrastructure to support 40 people. So, and some of the people on my list, I have doctors, I have carpenters, I have farmers, I have builders. So, we need all of these different skill sets to lead a reasonable lifestyle, right? And the other part of it is if you are going to go someplace else, you better do it before you need to be there. Because if you don't, like you just, 2008, 100% I knew the system died. I was getting ready to retire. I was living in a little 2-bedroom condo that I could just lock the door and off I go on my adventures. And that was my plan. And then 2008 happened, which I did not think I would see in my lifetime. I really didn't. And I went, uh-oh, I know the system just died. And 100% I knew it. So instead what I did was I bought a property, and I am in dead central Phoenix. I mean, there's no privacy anymore. It's easy enough to find me. I'm in dead central Phoenix, and I became an urban farmer, right? So I executed, that's how my mantra began, because I said, well, what do I need to do to take care of my family? Because I have 2 daughters. I knew they're not going to go someplace remote with me at this point. So I said, okay, I'm going to make my last stand right here. And, me, I'm not a gardener or a farmer. I have a couple of sisters that were into that. And we always had a kitchen garden growing up. But I knew that food becomes the single biggest issue for people around this. And look what's happening globally for food insecurity and famine, right? And look at what happened in 2020 when the grocery store shelves went barren. So, you look at that and you know that it's going to be really bad here. I grew out this whole, I'm on a pretty prominent corner. I only have a half an acre, but I converted it into a food forest. And I can tell you, my neighbors weren't happy with me for quite some time because the property didn't look very good because I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I had to do it, right? Now they're happier with me because now it's pretty. But, I started growing food, and initially I was just trying to grow enough for 20 people because that's my sibling and my children and stuff like that. I've ended up creating a whole food forest on this property, growing food on the exterior, because I know that when people are hungry and they're hopeless, they make choices they would not otherwise make. So I can't really control that, but my neighbors know they can pick a pomegranate, they can pick a
Right.
zucchini. And I'm hoping that they then won't destroy the food, but they'll just come back every day so that they feed their family. But most people don't even know what food growing in a garden looks like. They're used to going to the grocery store.
Are you in the market for gold and silver? Then if so, please consider Miles Franklin. They are my gold and silver dealer of choice. So not only do they have super competitive prices that you're going to have a really hard time finding elsewhere, but then they also have top-notch customer support. I know Andy Schechtman, the owner of Miles Franklin, top-notch guy. I wouldn't be recommending them to you if I didn't have faith in their product mode. What you really want to do, however, you want to email them at info@milesfranklin.com, and you want to say that Capital Cosmos sent me in the description line, because when you do that, you can get access to their special pricing sheet. You want to get that special pricing sheet because you're going to get special prices that you won't find on the website itself. So email them at info@milesfranklin.com. Tell them that Capital Cosmos sent you, and you won't be heckled with spam emails, etc. There's no commitment necessary. I promise you that. And with that said, I will let you get back to the video. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, you rewind back to the Great Depression. People were very self-reliant back then. And even then, times were hard. When you kind of impose those same conditions to today's society, it's not going to be pretty, considering how sheltered and bubbled off people are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's it's the skill sets, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Well, hey, you mentioned the IMF and the SDR. Where do the BRICS boys fit into all of this? Are they a part of this plan, or is it simply like a Western global, part of the Western elite silo?
They're totally part of this, because a lot of what we're seeing here is a shift from the power, and we're considered in the West, the US and Europe, those advanced economies, to the East, to Russia, to China, to India, right? So what we're witnessing is this transition, and what the BRICS nations have actually done is they're in the process of building a completely different infrastructure underneath the global financial system to replace the US's SWIFT system. And once that is completed, then what is more than likely to happen, and I don't know, they'll test it out, but once that plumbing is completed, then the intention is to shut off the West, to shut off the SWIFT system, and open the spigot to the East. So the power is going to shift there, but it's still, all of it is going to be overseen by the IMF and technocrats. So the BRICS nations are very important. I know that a lot of people think that the currency is going to be backed by gold, and I would agree with that. They're accumulating a lot of gold, and if you think we know how much gold China's sitting on, we have no clue, right? Because no gold leaves that country anyway. And if we really know how much gold any central banks have, yeah, it's kind of doubtful that we know what the truth is. But what we do know is that China, since 2006, they were not allowed to own gold over a certain amount up until 2006. And most of the gold that they were holding in China, or them buying, were through the banking system, where it was held in the banks, which means that there's a lot of gold in the Chinese banks that are easy to confiscate from the public. And what gives me so much hope, you have no idea how much hope this gives me, is this global move by the public to position into gold and to position into silver. So we're watching it, especially with the younger generation in South Korea and also in China, with the physical, buying the physical gold, buying the physical silver. And in the US, as witnessed by, let's see, who sells gold in this country? Oh, Amazon. Oh, Costco. Oh, Walmart. Now they're doing it through third parties, but you think they're going to carry gold and silver if the public isn't demanding gold and silver? Now, suggest that anybody buy their gold and silver from any of those entities, because there's a whole strategy that goes behind it, and it matters what you buy. And you also need to be working with a reputable dealer so that you can easily sell it back. And they don't have that piece in place at all. You get no advice. You're just buying bullion. You're just buying what they have. But that does show that the US public is beginning to really become aware, and the confidence. I've been tracking the confidence in the US, the public confidence in the government, in the powers that be, and that's been severely declining for a very long time. So, yeah, I mean, I think that this is a growing movement. It is my greatest wish. Convert, create that very peaceful revolution just by converting your garbage fiat into sound money. And somebody asked me earlier, well, what if if you have no money and you're really poor and you can't afford gold and silver? Number one, hone those skill sets, because those skill sets have value. If I needed to, I could lay irrigation. Do I want to lay irrigation? No, I do not. But could I do it? Yes, I could. It is a skill set that I learned from my urban farm. So hone those skill sets, but also I think it's critically important for everybody to understand that gold and silver in any form is monetary at its base, right? It can be bent, it can be broken. Your old class ring that was 10 karat gold, that's got gold in there. They can pull that out. So there is always a way to accumulate at whatever level you are. And I mean, quite honestly, I probably accumulated it in every single way. I mean, I got these at yard sales, right? I got these going into, secondhand stores and just marked. If it's marked sterling, it's 92.5% pure. If it's marked 925, it's 92.5% pure. If it's broken, if it's all crunched up, if it's tarnished, doesn't matter. None of that matters. So if you can't afford it, there's always a way. But hone your skills, because those skill sets have value. Anything physical will have value. It's just easier to barter with silver and gold. And you're pointing to me. Hard stop. Okay. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Well,
so, yes?
No, just go ahead. You're about to say something.
Oh, okay. So, yes, because they put it up in front of me. We do publish a lot of material. It's all educational. I give people links so they can do their own due diligence. Don't take my word for anything. And here it is. If you come up with a different conclusion than I have, rock and roll hoochie coo. I can't tell you that your opinion is less valid than mine. But a hopium opinion, a random opinion. So don't do it to yourself. Make educated choices so that you can put your best interest first. And at Zang Enterprises, that's what we do. We execute a strategy based upon my studies since 1987 of those repeatable patterns. But the first thing we do is define your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? What are your circumstances? What do you have to work with? And then we put it all together for you so that you can execute your strategy. I have so much talent here. We will be putting out, we're already working on it, but we don't have an announced date yet, but the rest of the mantra. So I have a lot of community around me that knows how to do all of those mantra pieces: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. So you get a lot when you're working with Zang Enterprises to see this is where you're starting. Where do you want to go? We're going to help you get there.
Fantastic, Lynette. We'll have all those links posted down below, guys, so be sure to check them out. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like. Thank you so much for watching, guys, especially if you made it all the way out to the end of the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Check out Lynette Zang's links down below, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye, y'all.